What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? This is Josh. No Leo today. He's on the injured reserve. He's on the IL, whatever sport you love. He'll be back with us next week, and when we do some of these short form videos for y'all. Hopefully everyone's doing good. 713 Football. We're doing our collab with Jason Braddock. Man, let me know what y'all are thinking. Like, how are y'all doing out there? Let us know your signs of life. All the good stuff out there. So let's see if this is where. Yeah, it's my first time kind of rowing the boat. Being the captain of the show. So I'm working it and gonna. There may be some bumps and things, but yeah, man. How you been, Jason? How let everyone know like what you've been up to. How you doing?
Man, doing pretty good. Appreciate the invite, Josh. Hopefully, Leo will get well soon. But no, as far as me personally, just during the seasons, writing with good friend Dr. Roto, covering the AFC South and everything. Now that's the off season, just mostly focusing on what's going on with the Texans, looking ahead to free agency, the NFL draft, and my content right now you can just find on social media at Twitter at Jason Braddock.
Awesome, awesome. All right, y'all. So this hop right in. I think everyone's kind of understood that there's one thing that's kind of bumping around before we get to combine, and the main thing that everyone's kind of arguing about, and some people are talking about, uh, let me turn this off. There we go. And there's some people kind of talking about running around naked in order to kind of guarantee that it's not going to happen. But this talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the C.J. Stroud trade rumors. All right. So here's the deal. Let's take it through the timeline a little bit. Like everyone's kind of had the moments of like, oh crap, this playoff run was really rough. Like what are we gonna do moving forward with the quarterback? How do we elevate and everything? And then first came out the Albert Breer report. So let me pull that up. I got the quotes for y'all to kind of read along and see kind of here we go. So let me hide this. Beautiful. All right. So the first thing that came out was the Albert Breer, and I kind of missed this a little bit. It was kind of lost in the sauce. It was back on the 9th, I believe it came out. He wrote it up. He's always got really good information. And he said if Stroud's contract negotiations get sticky or the Texans prefer to punt them to the next year while rewarding Anderson, will there be friction? Could that impact the Texans' offseason? Might someone swoop in to see if they could pry the wildly talented 24-year-old away? There are questions other teams have certainly asked as Stroud's gone through his ups and downs. So first thing we heard that, right, and everyone was kind of all right, you know, that was kind of a little bit crazy. It didn't like blow anyone's socks off, didn't freak anyone out. But then McShay came out, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. It seems like it's been coming in a cycle and bouncing around everywhere. And he came out on the podcast, and he usually doesn't say stuff because he's not a big newsbreaker like Breer is. He doesn't say stuff unless he's heard it like from people he really trusts, and he's got a decent record. And we'll talk about everything behind it and everything. But he came out and said specifically, "I'm told, don't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks there are some big named quarterbacks that are going to be targeted. C.J. Stroud is one of them. FYI, Burrow was another guy he listed." Does he need to be a change of scenery? Be prepared for that. Okay, so he said, kind of understand that. And he said Stroud hasn't been the guy the last 2 years in Houston that he was in the rookie year. Some teams are looking at that and saying, can we get that rookie year out of Stroud here? So everyone's kind of looking at it and seeing and saying, all right, well, that's kind of where it's looking at, and these are kind of rumblings. My question to you, Jason, like laying all this out and kind of people overreacting and reacting and kind of reacting and everything in between, right? What was your kind of first blush like opinion to it, and kind of really more importantly, kind of what would you do for? Let's start with first reaction, and then we'll talk about whether or not we would do it personally, right?
Yeah, no. So my first reaction when the Albert Breer comments came out, I just kept reading through it to where it sounds all hypotheticals. If this happens, then what? If this happens, and more importantly, it sounds from the outside looking in. Teams will, could call and target, looking at these big name quarterbacks and everything. So all the hypotheticals and what teams on the outside can do, I expect that to happen every year. The other thing I would say, not on only Breer, but McShay as well, and to piggyback that as well on McShay is also what teams on the outside would be doing. So these teams are thinking, can they get that rookie year out of Stroud? Who cares what other teams are thinking? Are the Texans, and none of these are saying like the Houston Texans franchise is out there picking up the phone saying, what can we get for Stroud? Now, if that conversation comes out, you pique my interest some. But this right here is just either other teams speaking or what happens a lot of times in the NFL offseason, heading up to the NFL combine. This is a downtime right now. Not I don't want to say people looking for content and stuff, but reporting what they're hearing from agents that they typically wouldn't report in season. And so a lot of this can come off as agent talk. Like Aaron Wilson was talking about Ed Ingram. I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit later when we get into free agency and all that. And he said Ed Ingram's market should be around 15 to 18 million. And the verbiage is not exact there, so I'm paraphrasing here, but it's talking about 15 to 18 million. That was a little surprising to me because I figured it'd be more like 12 to 14 million on the high side. Maybe you get up to 15 million, but I'd be surprised. And so, first thing to me, NFL insiders. I did it for a little while. Like a lifetime ago, I did some NFL insider stuff. The majority of your inside information is coming from agents. So if you report this free agent prospect is looking at a market of 15 to 18 million, well, yeah, of course, an agent's going to put that out. A team's not going to put that out. A team that's trying to re-sign him is not saying his market's probably 15 to 18 million. That's not coming from the team. That's not coming from the player. That's more than likely it's coming from the agent. And just like most of this stuff's probably coming from his agent. And here in Houston, we know his agent well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man. That was the first thing that popped in my head too, right? It just really felt like David Mulgeta trying to go out there and really manufacture leverage in negotiations, right? And kind of create that urgency after a really, and it's what he's supposed to be doing as an agent. It 100% makes
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah, to go out because right now he has zero leverage whatsoever. Only leverage he has is that they've committed to him as the young quarterback and they've kind of started to build around him. And he's kind of in their vision moving forward until he's not, right? And man, it's really interesting. Like, people have kind of run wild with it, like kind of throwing ideas of what it would cost. What are some, historical context of it? This is one of those things that I could see happening maybe a year from now or something similar, or maybe even after he signs an extension, similar to like a Carson Wentz situation. If it doesn't kind of pan out and maybe you get like first pick here, first pick there. My one follow up to you with all this, because I agree, I feels like a smoke screen of all smoke screens, and it's masterful to have it in two different guys
Right.
that are really highly regarded and are straight shooters. Like everyone, there's not a lot of baggage with either of those in terms of sources and everything. But my question to you specifically is, what would it take for you to not completely hang up the phone with Casario? What would you think of his hypothetical value if he was on the market now? What would you think kind of would have to be the starting point, or what would you even pique your interest trade wise?
Well, I'll begin with the starting point since you mentioned that. Starting point's two first rounders. I mean, you're not getting the guy who's 24 years old, has been to the playoffs 3 straight years. Yes, and we all know how horrifically it ended there on the road in the playoffs, not only with the snap malfunctions in Pittsburgh, but then the next week, the 4 interceptions against New England. We can talk about all the other variables in that, but being a quarterback in the NFL, the bulk of it, the blame and the glory is going to fall on the quarterback's shoulders. So just being realistic and dialing it back in a little bit, the guy's 24 years old. He's gone to the playoffs 3 straight years. You look at guys who had their got their contract extensions in their third years. Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Stroud's outplayed him in his first 3 years than Trevor Lawrence did. Justin Herbert. Tua waited to his fourth year. That's a guy that had to wait till his fourth year. But most of these guys get that new contract after their third season. And Stroud has more accolades than all of those guys, if we're talking about regular season and postseason success combined. So if the conversation was to be had, and if I'm not hanging up the phone immediately, the floor is 2 first round picks, and it only goes up from there because uh, the team that acquires him would have to give him an extension. You're not trading 2 first plus and not signing him to a contract extension. So they would have to give him that contract extension. But here's what I would say, and another reason it gets, I know people are still emotional off of how the playoff ran ended, especially with all the issues Strauss had in those 2 road games. That being said, though, what's your alternative? And I know people keep throwing out trade him for Joe Burrow. Let's be realistic. Beagles trade Joe Burrow. They're eating 56 million in dead cap. They're going to have to turn around and then pay in dead money. Excuse me. Then they're going to have to turn around and pay C.J. Stroud an extension. On the Texans side of that, you're getting Joe Burrow, who I'll no issues with it. This is top 5 quarterback in the NFL when he's healthy. But let's talk about that. He's 30 years old. Half of the 6 seasons he's played, he's been injured in. 2 of the last 3 seasons, I don't think he's played more than 10 games in the season. He's 30 years old now. He's one of the most sacked quarterbacks. The Drake May broke his record for most sacked quarterbacks sacked the most times in the playoffs. That was Joe Burrow because he's been playing behind an offensive line that wasn't good. Does that sound familiar to Houston Texans fans? So if you're taking on Joe Burrow's salary and everyone's playing with free agency in the draft and saying, well, if you do these extensions and these restructures and you do all that stuff to be able to go out there and sign these offensive linemen, sign a free agent running back and all that, that goes out the window. Joe Burrow is coming into this offensive line, obviously with some changes, but you're not signing big name offensive linemen. You're not signing big name running backs. And he's going to be still one of the most sacked quarterbacks now at 30 years old with an injury history. So I would go back to that question, Josh. Who's starting? Because the Texans right now, the mindset is playing for a Super Bowl in 2026. You can say whatever you want about CJ Stroud. Lost in these 3 divisional rounds, 3 straight years, 10 wins, 10 wins, 12 wins in the regular season. They're not going there saying we're going to make it to our first AFC championship game. They're saying the goal is to win the Super Bowl this coming up season. So you take CJ Stroud out, who's your quarterback? Realistically, because Joe Burrow's not realistic. Yeah, you're not going to bring in that salary after all these restructures and extensions you're planning to do just to fit his salary on there. The Texans had the second lowest salary for the offense last year, and I think it was the 6th highest on the defense. You get what you pay for. And so now you're going to take Joe Burrow away from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, possibly the greatest wide receiver tandem in the NFL. Put him here with good wide receivers. It's not Jamar Chase and T. Higgins by no means. No running game, as the Texans ranked 29th out of 32 teams in the NFL, not only this year, but Stroud's rookie season in yards per rush attempt. And that's what you're going to put Burrow in with his health industry. So I don't understand what the plan is. There's one quarterback that's guaranteed to go in the first round if you look at everything consistently. Some people got Ty Simpson in there. A lot of people got him slide in later into the first round, maybe even into the second round. So what what's your answer? I saw the somebody throw out Kyler Murray. I'm like, what are we doing here? But like we doing? So forgive the long response, but just to cover all the bases there and just put it in the foundation of being realistic.
Yeah, I I agree. I think the Cincinnati thing, the thing that is the non-starter that you didn't even mention is how cash poor that organization is. And there's no way that they'd be able to put out any semblance of a team that could support CJ Stroud if they had all that dead money to eat off of Joe Burrow. Like that's a whole nother thing with
Right.
how they're kind of haggling over rookies and all the shit that they pull over there. Like I understand like and there's the Cleveland idea too that oh they can go trade Cleveland could go make the move. It's like really like it's a great question. I think the one name that maybe it's like you would have to go into like the Derek Carr business and go trade for Derek Carr or something. And I think the only way you can logically kind of do the gymnastics is saying, all right, we're going to bring in a veteran. We're going to bring in someone that's just not going to make those mistakes. He may not also make those big plays, but he's not going to make those mistakes for the most part. And that's going to be good enough with our defense. The problem is you've had moments where CJ Stroud can do that. And if you commit to it and keep building with it, and you've made 3 straight playoffs, there's a path there that you can build this thing more sustainably and not have a thing where you have a great defense that gets really expensive. You've got a quarterback that's old. If you go get a veteran or Jacoby Brissett or whoever the hell you want to roll with, right? You kind of have that guy. Then you got to kind of start all over with the offense again. So there's still that window. I think it's a year or two from now. I think you're 100%. First thing you brought up was right. This is an agent thing all over, up and down. But yeah, I think we covered all the bases with the CJ Stroud talk. Let's move on to the thing that we kind of went back and forth a little bit on Twitter and talked about, and I think is probably the more fascinating thing and thing that can really help CJ Stroud and really change the offense is the thing that we missed the most. Going into 1 second. Let's see. There we go. Sorry. Maneuvering the StreamYard minutia. But yeah, so let's talk about your approach and what your dream approach. And I got one kind of off the wall approach that I'm going to ask you about a little bit later. But what's your dream approach and kind of how you would approach the running back position? Because I think that's like high level. We missed Joe Mixon incredibly this year. It was a different season if Joe Mixon is healthy and available throughout the year. We're probably in the AFC Championship game, and we're probably potentially in the Super Bowl with Joe Mixon out there. So kind of what are your thoughts, and kind of how would you personally, GM Jason Braddock, approach the offseason looking at the running back position for the Houston Texans?
Yeah, I don't think you look towards the draft. The Texans have two young backs, Jawar Jordan, Woody Marks. Marks was a rookie last year. Jordan was in his second year, but he missed all of his rookie year injured, didn't play most of last year. So these are two quality backs that give you a good starting place, but you want that number one guy. And so how do you attack it? I think you go towards free agency. I, I don't think, especially with the running back draft class not being one of the top notch classes like we've seen in years past. I think you bring in a vet guy, but with an eye towards age, where you really want to look towards those guys that's still around 26 years old. Maybe you get up to 27, 28, like a Rico Dowdle, but that's your fallback option. What you're looking at is in this free agency class. Number one, because you've got to fix that running game. Obviously, you got to fix the offensive line. You also got to fix that running game so it's not a one-dimensional offense. And so the running back position is one of the, I don't want to say the easiest, but one of the more uh, efficient positions to upgrade because you're not paying top of the market for those type of guys. I mean, you might pay a wide receiver 30 million a year, where running back, a quality running back, you can get for around 15 million a year. So the way you attack it is this free agent class. It's a good free agent class, and I think you do it like they did 2 years ago when they went after Saquon Barkley. Then they pivoted down. I think they had some interest in Josh Jacobs. I saw some reports all the way down. And when they kind of ran out of options, it was like, "Oh, y'all about to cut Joe Mixon? Well, we'll trade you for Joe Mixon." So I think that's the way you attack it. You go for Brees Hall right there at the top of the market. Kenneth Walker. Maybe those guys get franchise tags. Maybe they re-sign with their current team. But you pick up the phone. You make that call and see if you can go for those top of the market guys to add into this offense. Again, uh, second lowest payroll, 31st out of 32 teams on the offense last year. It's time to invest in that offense. Then if you miss, like you miss on Saquon Barkley, say you miss on, you pivot to a Javante Williams. If you miss on Javante Williams, you pivot to a Rico Dowdle. And then even if all that fails, you got another situation kind of like played out with Mixon. Maybe the Titans are getting ready to cut a Tony Pollard. Now, is that the most ideal situation? No, but he's been productive the last 2 years for Tennessee. But you definitely upgrade that starting running back position here in free agency. Then in the draft, I think you look on day three to add in that rookie as far the depth, someone who can come in and compete with Jawar Jordan. If they can't beat him out, maybe if it's a later pick, you can slide to the practice squad. So you got a little bit more depth there as well. But I think that free agency market's the way to go. And in free agency in general, I would set my goals because the Texans are going to have to restructure and do some extensions to create the money that they're looking for to be active in free agency. I would set my goal on probably getting that middle tier center, middle tier type of guard or tackle, middle tier running back. And so maybe Javante Williams is a little bit higher than the middle tier, but I'd set my goal on a Javante Williams, Rico Dowdle, a little bit lower than that, as probably the most realistic options to be in because Brees Hall is going to have a couple teams. Kenneth Walker's going to have a couple teams if they make it to free agency.
Yeah, I agree. I think my dream scenario is that we go out and we rob two different division teams. We go get a Braden Smith in free agency, and then we go get a ATN in free agency. And I think that would that would be a double whammy of ripping away a building block for them, and then also adding in that explosiveness. I think the biggest thing we missed was that home run ability. Like, we have to, whoever the running back is, we can't go out and I've seen people talk about Tyler Algier. Like, we can't go out and get that guy. When you also have Woody Marks back. Like, Woody Marks is a bad dude, but he's like a car that's got the first and second gear that can really crank up to you, but you can't get to that third and fourth gear where he's going to really give you those 50, 60-yard runs. And really have the ability to turn up consistently 20-yard runs. Like, his top, when he's at his best, he's going 10 yards, 15 yards at most, kind of really cooking. And we need that guy that has that extra gear. I agree. You kind of jumped the gun on my big shocking idea and all that. But I was gonna say double up, right? And I wouldn't mind if it was early. Like, but there's few guys, right? For me, it's obviously, if you want to go crazy with it, I don't think this necessarily makes sense, but maybe it does with multiple second round picks. If you can move up for Jeremiah Love, if somehow he falls to the 8-9 range, I think he's going top 7-8, in that range most likely. But if he falls a little bit for whatever reason, or even if you want to move up and get there, you've seen Nick Cassero unafraid to kind of do that, and that would be kind of game changer. The problem is you can't do that without also making a move in free agency before that, because you can't leave yourself exposed going in the draft. So it's kind of that thing. And the other two guys are Jadarian Price, from Notre Dame, another guy with like home run ability, great speed, size, all the things you're looking for. And then I think a guy that's like in that day three potentially now because of an injury is Singleton out of Penn State. That kind of jumps out to me. A guy that has that shown flashes. You might get him at a discount because of the coming off the knee injury. No, I think it was ankle. I can't remember. He got jacked up at a Senior Bowl, or maybe you go get a guy like Emmett Johnson. Those kind of types of guys. But I think
Jonah
it's so.
Coleman, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Jonah Coleman's another guy that's got sneaky, good, big playability. But I think you just have to game the system and kind of focus everything on saying we have to get that home run ability in the running back room. Otherwise, it's a failure moving forward because, I agree you could go big market, but man, it just feels like one of those things where there might be a second wave of running backs that shake free as well. Once these guys get signed, someone is like, "Oh, we signed this guy's a little younger. We're going to pop this other guy out the back door and we're going to go get him real quick and kind of upgrade it that way." So maybe that's another way. But I agree. I think the way this class is, it's definitely a free agency over draft thing, a trade thing over draft thing. You can't really go into the draft saying that's what we need to do. And there's a ton of like great targets out there that would be really fascinating to kind of see kind of where they end up.
Yeah, I think if you're going on day two, Jonah Coleman, we mentioned is definitely a guy that I think makes sense for them. Like you said, I thought you brought up an excellent point as far as free agency being before the draft. You're going to have to kind of know where you are at that point in free agency. If you get Rico Dowd instead of Javante Williams, for example, I think you probably become a little more comfortable using a day two pick to go for a Jonah Coleman. If you get Javante Williams and you've got Woody Marks there, you got Jawar Jordan, then I think a day three pick, a guy. When you talk about speed, I think this is right up your alley. Then because I think this guy can push low 4.3s. Just looking at the tape, I'm not sure what he's supposed to run at the combine, but we'll find out next week. Damon Claiborne. Demons in his first name. He played for the Demon Deacons, so it's kind of fitting there for me. But I think you add a Demond Claiborne with a Javante Williams, Woody Marks, and Jawar Jordan. I think you're cooking with something there because you're talking about true home run threat. That's it. You give this guy a hole in the crease, and I mean he could house it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's really fascinating. I think they also have to bring in a guy, kind of has to have different pieces fitting. I think people always talk about receiver position fitting together like a basketball team, but if we're really going to commit to the run game and really kind of build it around Stroud the way we need to have guys that can run different roles. For me, growing up in New Orleans and kind of following the Saints, I kind of look at back at the way they always had the pieces kind of fitting together with Pierre Thomas, Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, Chris Ivory, Mark Ingram, all these different guys that kind of did things a little bit different that all kind of fit together. And I think we need to find the guy now that can allow you to get the most out of Woody Marks moving forward. And that's one thing
Absolutely.
we didn't do in the passing game. It's like there's a whole extra element that can make CJ Stroud's life way easier that I think is going to be fascinating moving forward. And man, who knows? Maybe we'll draft one in the mock draft coming up.
We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this see if there's any comments that we need to get to before. No, just mostly a lot of pleasantries. And if you guys, real quick, if you guys can like it, if you can subscribe, if you can follow Jason on Twitter, would be great. Follow his stuff, get into all the stuff that he's writing. It's great. The threads he does on breakdowns, and you guys will see once we jump into the mock draft. It's like some of the best draft stuff and really some of my favorite stuff to follow. I have notifications on every time he's putting stuff out there. It's really fascinating and fun to read. If you guys could go, like I said, subscribe. If you guys want to be a member, want to support the channel, you guys can hop on. You guys will see the join tab right under this video where if you're watching on YouTube. If you guys are watching on Twitter, if you'd be great if y'all could jump over to YouTube and watch it. That way you can comment, let us know what's going on and kind of what your thoughts are. But other than that, I think it's time that the thing that everyone is like, loving at this point. We're not at that point where it's mock draft fatigue yet, but I think we're at the point now where we can still enjoy them. And I think what we're gonna do now is gonna jump in once I can pull it up. Let's see. Good Lord. All right. Yeah, we're gonna do mock draft with GM Jason Braddock. If Nick Casario had to go on a sabbatical or something for the draft, this is kind of how he's looking at it so far. I'll throw in a couple of opinions here and there, but
Yeah.
he's going to be the main one running it. I'll be the annoying college scouting director that has opinions but doesn't get to make any decisions. If you guys know how the the background of everything kind of works, especially coming from the Parcells way. There's always those are the guys that are always the smartest because every time they know it, they know all the evaluations, right? It's really funny like that.
Absolutely.
All right, so let me see if I can pull up the shared screen. All right.
And while you're pulling that up, Josh, I see Rooney Gaspar. Any thoughts on trading Titus? Josh, my thoughts on it. I'll obviously let you chime in on it as well, though. I think Titus' versatility gives you so much to play with this offseason. Like you talked about Braden Smith. Well, if say they go for Braden Smith and they don't land him, you still have the possibility to go out. Like, say you're going out to sign one free agent offensive lineman, one big signing on the offensive line. If you miss on Titus, maybe you go for a Kevin Zietler, Joe Batonio, Isaac Suomalo at offensive guard. And now, I mean, if you miss on Smith, then you kick Titus back out the right tackle. If you land a Braden Smith, you kick Titus back in the guard. So I think that versatility is always something that gives you so much value. And he's the leader of that offensive line. Also, I think you want to consider continuity as well on the offensive line because there could be a new starting offensive line. If Ed Ingram's price gets out of hand, there could be a new starting right guard. And if they decide to move Titus inside, maybe there's a new starting right tackle. So, or if you trade Titus, you're possibly looking at three different new starters. And it took till week 12 last year for this Texans team to find their starting unit. So for me personally, I like his versatility. I think you keep him in place, and that gives you more flexibility, not only in free agency, but in the draft as well.
Oh yeah, I completely agree on Titus. I think he's maybe a year away from if you have that. This is where you can draft that guy that you can develop to be that guy that can kind of jump in and take over for him eventually and get that guy in the third, fourth round potentially that can push him and create that competition. I think there is some limitations to him in the run game, specifically, but to me, I think it's a situation where like you're not at a point where you can turn away guys that are above average to like competent good offensive lineman at this point. You're not that kind of embarrassment of riches stage yet. As a team building situation, I just think you can't come into next year expecting him and locking him into right tackle and saying we're going to build it around that. We're going to say this is going to be happening unless you get a true like difference maker at left guard, which I don't know where that would really come from, especially in the run game. But I think that's the most important thing is you got to continuously add real force multipliers in the run game moving forward. But yeah, here we go. So this gets started on
All right, let's do this.
let's do this. Let's see. Start. All right, here we go. All right, let me scroll down here. So all right. So these are some, my God. This is like dream scenario. So some of the guys that just went earlier or just a few picks before, we kind of see Caleb Banks is the dream of Caleb Banks and Peter Woods is off the board. Fano's gone. Let's see. TJ Parker went early. I could see him climbing up if he times, Howell going that early is kind of interesting. Ione dropping that far would be something worth trading up for. Sadiq in general. But yeah, so kind of being here at 28 and kind of seeing. So these are some of the people that are available, and you can kind of give us. There's Proctor available, CJ Allen, Lomu is a guy, Messidor, Simpson is a guy. So maybe it's a spot where someone's willing to trade up. But kind of what are you, is there a position specifically that you're targeting? We can start off with that. Like what's your overall draft philosophy this year, kind of starting off, and how do you approach these first, especially this first round and then those 2 second-round picks?
It's the trenches, defensive tackle, offensive tackles. I don't think there's a lot of first round true guards. You missed Ione. If that's a guy that you can move up a couple spots and get, you talked about having that guy that solidifies the running game, also good in pass protection, best true guard in the draft. You plug him in at left guard where he played mostly at Penn State. That's a trade you consider. Then I'd also consider moving back up from 38 to get back into the first round, get that 5th-year option. But I think that's a pipe dream unless Caserio considers moving up, and like you mentioned earlier, Josh, that's Casero's not gun shy. If he typically goes in a draft with 15 players roughly with a true first round grade. So sitting at 28, if one of those guys that he's got a true first round grade is available at 20, I think he starts getting the itchy trigger finger and could move up to number 20, as high as the number 20 to get that guy. And the Penn State guard Vega is definitely one of those ones to consider. Another guy, 2 guys you mentioned as well that would be worth considering. Defensive tackles, Caleb Banks. I know you love him. I think he'll be the first defensive tackle. As we sit today, we'll see how the whole process goes. But as we sit today, I think Caleb Banks will be the first D tackle off the board. Peter excuse me. Peter Woods is a guy that people got him in the top 10. People got him into the mid 20s. Caleb Banks, Peter Woods, Vega Ione, those 3 guys there at 20. If all 3 of them are there, which I seriously doubt, then you probably wait a little bit to see who slides a little bit later. But those are probably the 3 guys I'm targeting and say, hey, can any of these guys slide to 28? I don't think any of those 3 make it to 28. Off the latest buzz, which still over 2 months to go to the draft, Peter Woods seems like the most likely. He dropped 15 to 20 pounds last year. I think it changed his game a little bit quicker, but not as stout against holding up against double teams and everything. Caleb Banks, you've got the questions about missing most of the year, but you watch when he returned against LSU, and he's tossing guys in the running game, in the passing game. I mean, he's just dominant. And if you're questioning Peter Woods or Caleb Banks, the one team I would have no question about being able to maximize their potential at defensive tackle is D'Amico Ryans and what he got out of Tommy Togiai, Tim Settle, what he gets out of Sheldon Rankins. So Peter Woods, Caleb, 2 guys I'd definitely be watching to see how far down in that first round they slide, also with the left guard Vega. I expect both of them to be gone. I expect Lee Hunter to be gone from Texas Tech. That'd be that 3rd tackle. Is Hunter gone in this mock? Do you know?
Sorry, I was no, but yeah, he went 2 picks. It was Christian Miller 25, Lee Hunter 26, and Freeling.
Oh wow, Christian Miller's gone too.
Yeah, yeah. It
Okay,
went
so
there was a
that's
run because Caden McDonald went 24, so it was a
I believe it
true.
I believe it could actually play out like that. Those are the four D tackles I've got my eye on mostly for the Texans if they're in the running at 28. At that point, I'm pivoting to offensive tackle. I'm a lot higher than I guess most of it, but I've seen mocks now coming out where he's going at 23. Max Ian, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Max Ian Nocher or Ian,
Yeah,
whatever, you
Ian
get it.
Nacho or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ian Nachor. There you go. Maxi and Nachor, I have higher than Caden Proctor. I have higher than Monroe Freeland. The two guys I would, if I'm going for the Texans, would be Max and Freeland would be my fallback there. With Freeland already gone, I think, and with those four D tackles already gone, this for me is between Max and Caden Proctor. Because having going back to Titus Howard, having Titus Howard versatility to play guard and tackle, and possibly Caden Proctor have the ability to make, if he's not a right tackle, he kicks the left guard. That gives you insurance to Proctor. Have no issue if the pick here is Proctor. But for me, I think Max could turn out to be, when it's all said and done, the best tackle out of this class. So for me, it would be Max. If you want to go Caden Proctor, I understand that as well. And let me tell you this, because I see Caleb Lomu's on it. I've seen him mock to the Texans. I think Caleb Lomu's a better tackle than Max and Freeland and Proctor. But for the Texans, you were talking about how they put Trent Brown out there and Ed Ingram, and they just road graded on that right side when they were out there. And I agree with you. Titus shored up the pass protection, getting rid of the silly stunts, beating the Texans at the left guard position. But he's not the mover at that left guard position. That's why you consider a Vega if he's within striking distance. But he's gone. So Caleb Lomu, I don't that mover in the pro that the Texans are looking to go for at the tackle position. So that's why I would say with what's available on the board, it would be between Max and Caden here. And for me personally, I know most people would go Caden Proctor. It would be Max for me.
Yeah, man, I've had this kind of as soon I finally got through all of the Senior Bowl reps and all I recorded all the different coverage to kind of see the practice reps and kind of see how he kind of grew. It was kind of your classic Senior Bowl riser. Then you go back and watch the tape because I like doing that where I watch the Senior Bowl, then I kind of confirm it with the tape. I kind of do it backwards sometimes, just kind of change it up, especially with the guys that go out there because you get those kind of different perspectives. It's really interesting seeing Max because there's a rawness to his game, and I don't know how much you can kind of have that similar flexibility that you would with a Caden Proctor, where I do think you can bring Caden Proctor in and year one play him at a guard position and then move him out of tackle and kind of have that flexibility, especially, and this is more especially if we don't bring Ed Ingram back for some reason, right? There may be more of a lean there. um, Man, I completely agree with the Lomu take though. I think he's extremely talented. He reminds me a little bit of Connerly coming out last year, where it's like the pass protection kind of tools are insane. His length is insane. I think he's got a long way to go in the run game. I think the reason that me personally that I think I would go more Proctor at this point is the advantage that he gives you in the run game. The fact that you have two of the biggest, most athletic tackles in the NFL. But you know what? This is GM Jason Braddock. So for this first pick, and just for if you guys want to go back and watch our previous mock draft, me and Leo decided on taking Max with the second pick. So it's not like we don't love Big Max as well. I'm not gonna try to butcher his last name. I got it once or maybe once. I'm not gonna kind of try to go out 100%. So this go Big Max. This kind of one question I have about Max though is, do you see him having flexibility to play guard initially, or do you think it's more of you just plug him in a right tackle and you kind of manufacture and figure out the guard position through other means?
That's your right tackle. His feet at tackle. You just tell a little backstory. This isn't me beating on my chest or anything, but I've been evaluating for about 16 years, evaluating different prospects and everything. His feet, those type of feet for a man of that size, typically those players go in the top 25. And I've seen mocks. A lot of mocks have him going 23 to the Eagles now after he was a third or the Senior Bowl. Then people kind of eased him up in the second, but you start more and more mocks have him going 23 to Philly. I think, and it's funny. Before those marks came out, I said I think he's a top 25 guy. Those type of feet at that size go top 25. I don't think he's as raw, even though he didn't play in high school. I don't think he's as raw as what's been led to believe. I think he can maul in the running game. He's got the feet to be one of the best tackles in the class. And I've said this the entire time over the last month or so when I talk about making this pick. I think the biggest gift for the Texans in free agency is Trent Brown. You've already got him in the house. He knows the OC, knows the O line. You sign him on a 1 year, like $7 million deal, something that's your insurance. So if Max doesn't turn out to be what you think he is, or he isn't week one ready, you can plug Trent Brown in there as long as he's fully healthy and ready to go to start the season. You've got cheap insurance there at that tackle position. So Max would be that right tackle of the future. And to come out of the draft without using higher than the 28th pick and a second round pick to get bookend tackles in back to back year after you trade Laramie Tunsil would just be absolutely insane.
I agree. The one that talking about his feet, the one kind of name that bounced around my head, and we'll make this pick and move forward. But the name that bounced around my head a little bit, watching his feet and the way he moves, was a little bit of Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. The
Oh,
way he's
nice.
kind of just moving and the balance, he just sits so naturally in his stance. I know Tyron was a different cat, and he
Sure.
was a little leaner. But yeah, the fact that Max is playing at this high level, right away. Caleb is tantalizing because he's just massive, and you see all the funky stuff they ran where we're throwing the ball, and he's kind of has those high upside. He's playing at Alabama, but man, the ups and downs are interesting with him. I agree. I think you kind of trust, if you truly trust Popovich moving forward, and you
Right.
value kind of what they did with Ursary. He's a perfect pairing moving forward, and he really opens up the playbook with your ability to, similar to what I saw with the Saints a few years back when they had Ramczyk and Teron Armstead, where they were
Oh,
able to pull
nice.
their tackles out and kind of do a lot of really fascinating things and be really multiple, from like left tackle all the way to the right, and kind of interchange it and allow CJ to boot left, boot right, all the different things.
I like
But
that
yeah,
Armstead call because I mean, if you remember, a lot of people were like questioning his competition, and but I mean, it was the athletic ability that teams just fell in love. Great call there, and to just piggyback that, I don't think Lomu's what the Texans looking for. And I also expect he's probably going to go before 20. I think he's probably one of the. I'd put him ahead of Max and Freeland and Proctor. And then last thing I'd say on that, if you decided to go Caden Proctor, I'd have absolutely no problem with them, especially because you're a great team to do so with Titus versatility and Caden possibly having that versatility. I don't think there's a better team to take Caden Proctor.
yeah, and you know they're gonna have a good scout on Alabama players, and with Casario and his connection with Belichick, who is connected with like Saban. I'm sure there's still guys in there that are connected with the Saban tree and kind of get their information. They've done a good job of scouting those guys. Like other than Mechie had cancer and that was horrible, but like you
Right.
can't really count that against them. And then Christian Harris is just not being able to stay healthy. But the player, when he's out there and he's been, but before he started having the injuries, was absolutely a steal where they got him. So I think that scout is, yeah, I think it would be crazy, and it might be a situation where I know Texans fans don't want to hear this, but I could totally see this being a trade back situation where they just say, you know what, there's so many different dudes at this spot. We can move back one pick or two pick. We're happy with both these guys, and we can add a little bit more or something. I think it's more likely they trade back before the draft, like they've done over and over again. I'm just hopefully they wait as long as they can so that they don't kind of give us less things to talk about with first round picks.
Right, right,
Right, right.
absolutely.
So going with that, let's move on and see. Okay, Ty Simpson's out there. Now here's an interesting thing. Do you think about, like, I don't know where you have Ty Simpson, but just quarterback in general? Do you think of taking a swing at a guy in late day 2 or early day 3? Before we jump in, because there's a lot of great guys. Do you kind of, is that something you're processing and thinking about with how CJ played, or do you think that's a waste of a resource at this point, and not because it's not a great class in general? So maybe it's something you maybe
No,
do that in 2027.
I haven't talked about it at all, but I don't think there's any issue with taking a day three guy instead of just betting on a late round pick. I think what Graham Mertz say moved up to the sixth round, excuse me, the sixth round for, if I'm not mistaken. And so if guys that you like, starting as early as the fourth round, because you have, uh, those five picks in the top 106. And then you got 128 there. I think starting around 128 through the end of the draft, I think you can definitely start considering a quarterback, especially if you've handled your business in free agency and through those first five picks. And I say five picks, I know it's not going to be those picks when a draft gets it, whether he trades up or trades back, whether in the first or second round or whatever. They won't be picking in all those spots, but I think they can take care of most of the checklists there in those first top of the first four rounds, pick 106, 28, 38, 59, 69, and 106. And whether you move back or trade up, I think you can get a lot of the checklist taken off to where starting at 128 and later, you can consider quarterback. Take another shot at the board because Davis Mills, you could possibly trade him and get that return on investment. And then you don't want to be sitting there with just Graham Mertz as your insurance. Put another guy in that competition with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And some of the guys that went, Cisse went, Messidor, who's that 25-year-old but absolute demon off the edge. Lomu.
Cisse, and I know cornerback's not the biggest need. You might want some depth, but that guy right there, I don't know. Most of these mocks have him going late first, early second. I think that guy's a top 20 talent, and I mean the speed to just fly around. If somehow he's there at 38, I'd have to consider him, even though there's bigger needs and everything else. That's when BPA definitely starts coming into the conversation and all that. I just wanted to mention that as we are going over.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm I'm as BPA as it comes, right? Really across the draft, even in the first round. I've even talked about potentially going if there's an edge rusher that falls to you at 28 that you feel like has a little flexibility inside, outside, or just in general. If you can bring that next guy, kind of build him up behind, say if somehow Keldrick Falk or some cat like that, or someone that you really like. That's it.
And
I
you
kind
don't
of.
sound as you don't sound as high on him, but that's how I feel with Cassius Howe. I feel like
Mhm.
he's got D'Amico stamped all over. I know people are going to talk about the arm length. Man, guys with that type of motor, they might not win traditionally, but they win because they just don't stop. That if I'm stamping a guy with the D'Amico label, that's a D'Amico swarm guy if I've ever seen one at Cassius Howe. And so if he's there because of the arm length and the size, at 28, he's definitely a guy that I have to have the conversation about. And if he's there at 38, especially in this mock, when all those first four D tackles that uh, I just, if I'm the Texans, I hope that they make it. At least one makes it to 38, so you get that all offensive lineman you want at 28. If they don't, then Kristen Miller's the guy that's mostly been available at 38. But I said even him, I don't know if any of those four, just like this mock, would make it to 28. And I definitely don't think they any of them make it to 38.
Yeah, I know that's my kind of fears at DT. I feel like if you're gonna take that guy, the way things are playing, the way guys are rising up, you may have to go get that DT at that first pick. It's gonna be hard because there's gonna be a tackle potentially there that really excites you, and there's gonna be a DT there that's gonna probably equally or potentially be in that same kind of tier, unless it falls exactly how it did today, where the tackle position was pretty easy. So Messidor went Lomu, Proctor, CJ Allen went off the board. Concepcion, Manuel McNeil Warren, who's an absolute dog at safety. He would have been I would have ran the card up if he was there at 38. With his length and playmaking, R. Mason Thomas is just the absolute. He may not test great, but he's just the absolute baller. And Keith Abney out of Arizona State. So we're here at 38. Like you said, there's really not a ton defensive interior. We might have to kind of wait later to see what kind of overall though what's on the board. So we have Ty Simpson, uh, Chris
It's
Bell,
gonna
who's
it's gonna be hard. This is gonna be a BPA. Not saying there's not a need there too, but it's gonna be that name right there at the top. That's going to be hard to pass on. That guy shouldn't make it out the first round. He shouldn't make it to 28. If he's there at 38, I think you jump all over that. But let's see who else is still available. But
yeah.
Dylan Thoneman from Oregon. I mean, you pair him with this secondary in Houston. man, I think you're doing cartwheels. And Nick Casero loves taking DBs in the second round. Go back to his New England days. Look at what he's done in Houston. He loves DBs in the second round.
Yes, absolutely. And I think for me, the guy that also jumps out is Anthony Hill with the talent and athleticism that he has. Like, if you can say, you're going to drop him and let D'Amico kind of work on him for a year or so, and then eventually he can come in either pair up there. I mean, he could probably play day one to pair up there, but he's going to be a upgrade athletically over any linebacker we have on the team. And then kind of moving down, let's see.
And I think Omar Cooper is the fourth wide receiver in this class. He
Oh,
shouldn't
really?
be, yeah, he shouldn't be available here after those big three. I think Jordan Tyson's the best receiver. The injury history, I think he'll be the third selected just because the other two are probably safer because of injury history. But Omar Cooper Jr., I know people have Denzel Boston, KC Concepcion, but I think Omar Cooper Jr. is the fourth best receiver in this class. But the Texans, with taking a second and third last year, having Nico, probably going to add a vet wide receiver because they've been burnt so much with wide receiver entries in the playoffs and in the regular season the last couple of years. They carried more wide receivers in the playoffs than any other team this year. So that let me know they definitely are trying to get out ahead of it and build a wide receiver roster for a 20-game season if they can hopefully get to that point.
I know, absolutely. Some of the other names, I know Pregnon is a name that people have freaked out. For me, like two guys that jump out, Colton Hood, a corner. I know it's not a need. Zion Young is like really interesting as a guy to place out there that can really set the edge in the run game. Has upside as a pass rusher. And then see, is there any other names?
Jake Galladay's a guy I love as well.
Yeah,
But I think you try to risk it if it's between him and Dylan. Dylan's the much higher prospect here, and then you hope Jake Galladay's there for you at 59.
yeah, I agree. Blake Miller.
I didn't
What
know
is
he
your
was.
thoughts? Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead. I know
No,
I
no.
saw the A&M guy Chase. I'm probably gonna say his name wrong, but Bisantis.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my guess too.
okay, that's a guy I think you could take at this pick if you go D tackle at 28. One of those D tackles lands there for you. Probably your best chance is a Lee Hunter, Christian Miller. If you go one of those D tackles at 28 and you're looking at like, well, look, you've got Proctor still on the board, you've got Max still on the board, and if both of those are gone before 38, Chase is my pivot to where I'm like, okay, well, you've got Titus, you can kick back out the tackle, go guard here. And so that gives you that little bit extra of insurance that if the tackles you love are gone, that I go Chase. I know you mentioned Emmanuel Pregnon. People love him. They want him at
Mhm.
28 or 38. I think 38 starts getting closer to his value, but I think he's a guy that goes between pick 40 and 60. It is a little bit overhyped. I mean, saying 40 and people want him at 38 is not too much, but I've seen people throughout the process wanting him at 28. I think he's more of a 40 through 60 type guy. And I think Chase Bisantes is a better offensive guard. And so that would be the guy. The only problem was I think you kind of get back in that conversation with Titus Howard that, well, he's not a mauler at that guard position, but the pass protection is there. So that's just something to think about here. But we went offensive line at 28. I just don't see anybody on Dylan's value at this point because I think
Yeah.
he's a first round talent. Probably goes top 25, maybe even top 20. I mean, I really like that kid. You put him next to Kalen Bullock with Petrie, Laster, and Derek Stingley with these edges coming off these DNs coming off the edges for Houston. That's a cheat code.
Yeah, I mean, coming in like the safety is one of those underrated things. It's similar like drafting a guard where it's not the sexiest pick, but if you can get a true difference maker that can be that guy to pair long term with Bullock out there, and you got the corners and you have Petrie in the slot, you're pretty much set in the secondary for at least 5 years. Moving
Right.
forward, assuming you can kind of keep everyone paid and happy and everything. But I think if you come out with two guys that are day one starters, in this draft, like that's kind of your goal. And I think there's a ton of ways to maneuver and kind of work around. But this see kind of where we're at Caleb Tiernan.
That's not a bad guy to keep your eye on. If Texans don't go tackle in those
Yeah,
first two picks, and it gets later in the second, third round, there's some issues there he's got to work through. But that's a guy to keep your eye on a little bit later in the draft if you didn't take Max there in the first round.
yeah, he worries me a little bit. He's kind of more finesse than power, and I'm just so
Fair
power.
enough.
I like this the where I am with
Yeah.
running backs, but speed. I'm power hungry,
And that's
like
probably
crazy
the
right now.
best way to be because that's where the Texans are right now as a
Right,
franchise. So
right.
I definitely get that.
Yeah, man, this is tough for me right here. Coming into this position, I like Jeremy Bernard, but man, I see Derek Moore and I see Jadarian Prince, and those are two guys. Let me just scroll down and see. Is there any other names that kind of that really jump out to you that you would consider at this spot,
Um,
or who
haven't
would
seen.
you? Let me frame it that way. Who are you kind of looking at? Because those are the guys I kind of tip my hand on that, but those are the guys that I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah, I'm not in love with any of these guys here. Jake Galladay got taken. I'm guessing that's the guy.
Yeah, I
Okay,
assume
yeah,
so.
that's the guy that I don't know if he makes it to 59. I'd be surprised if he
Yeah,
doesn't.
he went 53.
That's probably, I think he's a top 50 type guy, but if you can get him at 59 to come in there at his size, I think like 6'4", 240 is probably what's going to come around. It doesn't make sense the way he moves. And if you can put him out there
Yeah,
with Aziz at that linebacker position, he doesn't have to come in and start right away. Toatoa's in his last year of his contract in 2026. As he outplays him as a rookie, great. If not, you've got your future there at that linebacker position. But seeing how we're moving on from that, he did get selected, and that's probably going to be the case here as well. Keep going a little bit.
yeah. It's,
Um, I like Jake Andrews. There's just so many tight ends in this class that I don't think they should go first two rounds. I like Jonah Coleman. Devin
oh,
Moore is a guy I absolutely love. His injury history scares you, but if you can get him there at the top of the third round after you solidify some other things, Devin Moore is a guy that I think would just be outstanding. But just add him as a death piece with Lester and also Stingley as well. I don't think you go with them that high, and you hope that injury has them slot a little bit. Jennings Dunker, I think you could consider here, but you probably feel a little bit better about that pick at 69. Uh, See if there's anybody else of intrigue in here. Keyron Crawford, just same as Devin Moore. I think a team could pass on Arvell Reese in the top five picks and say, hey, he's not a pure edge. I have some concerns with him. See a guy like Keyron Crawford that has some similarities and say, let's circle back around to the top of the third. I was talking to Lance Zerline on Twitter the other day, asking him about this. I'm like, hey, that exact thing. You think a team will pass on Crawford in the top five and circle back to Keyron Crawford at the top of the third? Because most people have them fourth round. Some even have them fifth. Lance surprised me. He said, I don't think he makes it there. And so
oh,
Keyron Crawford is definitely somebody I'm keeping an eye on there in the third round. So this is a tough one here for me. Um, Kyle Lewis, coverage would be absolutely lovely, but his size concerns me if he's going to be anything more than just a coverage linebacker. I mean, the guy's 220, maybe 220 plus. Keelan Rutledge, I think you can get in that third as well. Jacob Rodriguez is a guy I definitely consider, but I think you can get him in the third. So nobody. I would go back up to the top because I think you're right. Probably if you're going value pick here and not forcing the issue, then you're probably going to go. And I'm against going running back early, so I'm going to probably pass on Rice and Jonah as well. Excuse me. Love Jeremy Bernard, but again, I don't think you can go wide receiver.
yeah,
Derek Moore. There's nobody I love here. This would
yeah,
probably be a situation where I trade back.
yeah. I completely agree. I think there's. I mean, Max Sam Heck is solid, but he's unspectacular without a ton of like crazy upside. I think I saw Jolly the tight end. I think he's got some interesting movement skills. Emmett
Yeah.
Johnson, but it's like going running back here. So what would
Let's
you get?
let's let's do this. Let's go ahead and force the issue. and get that guard and Jennings Dunker.
Okay.
I think I know this is their rankings and everything else, but this is still a guy that, especially after the combine, these rankings are going to change so drastically. So I'd rather go ahead and this may be a little bit of a reach, taking them at 59. But now you have that guard. You resign Ed Ingram. You've got Max. You resign Trent Brown. You can kick Titus inside. And Jennings Dunkers could be excellent insurance for Titus or Ed Ingram there at right guard, whether play or injury. And so now you've got your tackle and you got your guard position locked up there. I know they probably list them as tackle, but I'd kick them inside the guard. You got your safety. Now you're in a position to where you can really start looking at best player availables. You probably want to get that tight end at some point, but there, like I said, there's so many guys that I like and would fit with the Texans. I don't think the Texans just want a pure receiving threat at tight end. I may be wrong, but with their scheme, I think they really need to upgrade their blocking from the tight end position, but also have a guy that can be a viable threat. In this offense, they're going to want to love the run 12 personnel and not just force 12 personnel, but actually run it with legit talent. So Jake Indries, Oscar Delp from Georgia. I mean, you can just go right down the line. There's probably about 5, 6 guys I would consider.
Yeah, for me, the two guys, and I'm curious your thoughts, like looking at
Sure.
tight end, and I agree that you can kind of wait a little bit, but it's the kid from, I keep wanting to call, I don't even remember what I want to call him. It's a complicated last name, but the kid from A&M and then the kid from Stanford, Roush, are the two
Sam
guys.
Roush, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of excite me as kind of dual threat, kind of blocking, and
Makes
kind of,
sense, yeah.
I think that that's a fourth round thing where we can secure that. And I wouldn't be
I
mad if
agree.
they doubled up with like a guy in the fourth and a guy in the sixth or something, and kind
Right.
of just replenish that. Let's see. Is there anyone that jumps out to you at this point? Let's see. Is this where you would think about Kieran Crawford or
Keyron Crawford, Devin Moore, Jake Rodriguez, Jennings Dunkers. I would say those. Jonah Coleman. If the Texans might not be thinking the way I'm thinking, and so maybe
Mhm.
they go and get Rico Dowdle, and then you probably want to go a little bit higher, for that running back. So maybe Jonah Coleman, or if you like Jadarian Price better, you could go that way. I probably lean a little bit more towards Jonah Coleman, but for me. Personally, I haven't been drafting running backs until day 3. So for me, it would either be between go ahead and getting that guard in Jennings Dunker that you could probably wait on. Go ahead and get Jacob Rodriguez with Galde gone. Go ahead and get and the two guys I love and I'm probably much higher on than everybody. I guess maybe not Lance on Keion Crawford, but I'd say Keion Crawford and Devin Moore. So if I'm going who I think's the best available, it's
yeah.
probably Keion Crawford or Devin Moore. But you could make the case for Jacob Rodriguez or Jennings Dunker here.
Yeah. So we got Jennings Dunker last pick. So
Oh, okay. We already took them. Oh, so
yeah,
we're on
yeah, we
69 now. Okay, my
yeah,
apologies. I
we're
didn't
done.
see it
No,
on the
you're good.
board.
You're good. Yeah, I kind of snuck that in while you're talking just to kind of keep it moving.
Okay, so we're in the
Yeah,
third round, pick 69 here. Now this, again, if you go Rico Dowd and you don't get Javante Williams or Brees Hall or whoever
right.
else top tier type runner, Travis Etienne you mentioned, then you go with somebody like a Rico Dowd, or I know people keep saying Tyler Algier. I'm not really on that band, but if you do go that way in free agency, then here maybe you do go the Jonah Coleman or the Jadarian Price. For me, though, I think Javante Williams just seems like that natural mid-tier fix. Probably cost
Mhm.
you $8 million a year. I mean, you don't bat an eye at that. You've got your starting running back, Woody Mark slots in perfectly. So I think you wait to day 3 to get that running back. So for here, excuse me. So here for me, I think you can still wait on tight end as well. You can wait on running back as well. So I think this goes best available. I like Devin Moore, but that's more of a depth piece, or if there's an injury, knock on wood, to Derek Stingley Jr., Kamari Laster, he could step in that starting role. But with his injury history, I'd go Keon Crawford here. Daniil Hunter's getting a little bit older. Keon Crawford, if let D'Amico develop him behind, who better to learn from than Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter? So I'd go Keon Crawford here.
Yeah, let's do it. I like that. Just continuously add that piece so you're not especially depending on what happens with Barnett and free agency and kind of some of the other pieces, like how you feel about Dylan Horton developing and moving forward. You just keep adding juice on the edges because
Yeah, and they
eventually you're
got
gonna.
some. No, my fault. Yeah,
No, no,
they've
go
got
ahead.
a couple young guys. Xavier Thomas, who was a fifth round pick, they picked up from the Cardinals last year when they cut him, and Solomon Bird they drafted as a seventh round pick. They've got some young guys they hope to invest in, but I believe that's more insurance to where you really need some young guy at that DN position to where in a perfect world, if Daniil Hunter starts to decline in the next year or two, they step in perfectly. But the Texans love that heavy rotation on their defensive line, so Keon Crawford would get valuable reps in 2026.
No, I completely agree. All right, let's see who's on the board here. We got 2 picks left. This is where you could kind of go a la carte with tight end. There seems to be a lot of guys out there. Roush is there. Let's see. Malik Muhammad is interesting as a corner that could kind of have that twitchiness. I think Bud Clark, if we hadn't drafted a safety earlier, he might be interesting with his
Right.
just overall ball skills. Brian Parker's fascinating, and this is something Leo's talked about in our other pods of liking the idea of bringing a tackle. If we hadn't drafted Dunker, but having a tackle that's potentially cross training down to center and getting bigger at the center position to kind of lean into the physicality and in general and everything. Let's
Absolutely.
see.
That's a smart take.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see what else is. So this is where you could maybe. I mean, Nick Singleton being here is kind of interesting. Let's see. Barber.
Austin Barber's a tackle I like later too. If you don't go tackle earlier and you get in a position where you go BPA or go D tackle early, go guard and you wait on that tackle, Austin Barber's a guy I think you can circle back around on. Alabama tight end, I like him as well. Um, I think for me, if Oscar Delp is there, that's probably
Mm-hmm.
the way I'm going, or Jack Andres from Texas. I think one of those tight ends.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I'm just scrolling through, making sure. There's your boy, Demond Claiborne.
Yeah,
Yeah, I gotta watch him. I haven't checked him out yet. I've heard
this
a lot of
dude. I
good
mean, I'm
things.
just going off of what I see on film, but this
Mm-hmm.
guy could legit be low 4.3s. He's probably the one I'm most intrigued to see at the combine to see if I'm just seeing it wrong on film, or if he's really got legit 4.3 speed. But that guy's blazing.
All right. Let's see who's there at tight end. So we got Roush, we got Cuevas, Borkircher was the other guy that kind
Yeah,
of had some interesting tape, but he
yeah.
had
I
some
mean,
good
this
contested catches.
it's just a position where there's just so many. Miles Kitzelman is a guy. Tanner Kincaid. I mean, the tight end position this year, I think there's definitely man. They've got Oscar Delp really low on here.
Yeah,
So if I'm looking at this board and I've got several guys I like, I'd probably still pass on that position unless there's
yeah.
a guy I just love. And it's one of those things that I think beauty's going to be in the eye of the beholder on the tight ends in this class. I'm not sure how they're going to fall. I think every team's going to have their tight end board completely different. So we've already got an edge. We've got the guard and the tackle. We got the safety.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what the D tackles look like. See if there's anybody there that you love that would fit what the Texans do.
Have you watched Chris McClellan yet?
I have. I
McClellan?
watched them the other day. He'll I'm trying to remember everything I thought from him. I was hoping to like him more because at the Senior Bowl he really jumped out to me, and so I went and watched some of the film, and he left me wanting a little bit more from him. He'll win some reps, but it's just so sporadic. I don't think he's a consistent guy. But when you're getting down here, I think we're at what now, 106 in the fourth round. I think
Yeah.
he's definitely a guy you consider. I know a lot of people like the Oklahoma kid that you just passed up.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Grayson
but
Halton.
he's so thin in his frame and all that. I don't know if he can consistently hold up and be a three down D tackle in the NFL. So I don't know if he's the one. I could see him sliding even a little bit later than this.
Have you? And this is like a deep cut, so you probably
Yeah,
haven't even touched. Have you watched Caleb Proctor at all?
I have not.
Go back and watch his tape he had
Okay.
against LSU. And he's your classic, like, and this would be like day 3 guy, but Let me see if they have his measurables here. 6'3", 180, kind of. He's that inside outside versatile type cat that's just really twitchy.
Gotcha.
And I'm curious to see kind of what NFL teams kind of view on him. I think he's a guy that you could go later on. Zane Durant's another twitchy guy. Let's see if there's anyone else. I know some people like Rashawn
Benny. I
Benny.
was getting ready to look at him today. I was looking at a, edge for
Hmm.
Michigan, and I kept seeing him, but I didn't go back and study him yet.
Oh,
Um,
was there
what's the
anyone at DT that you really like or?
nobody I love there. That's one of the reasons I want. I'd like to see the Texans really go 28 or 38 if somebody's still available there. But in this mock, they kind of went what I'm fearful how this mock played out is how it's going to probably play out. In real life, where those four D tackles that went before 28 will go before 28.
Yeah. Is there any running backs that but this would be
I
a
like,
spot
I
where I would
like,
start.
yeah, I like Damon Claiborne. I know a lot of people like Nick Singleton, some other guys, but I like Damon Claiborne.
Yeah, would you is this where you would maybe go running back here to get your guy or let me see if there's
Yeah,
any other
I think you're
uh
gonna get great value here by going out of running back. I think tight ends you can push down the board here. Uh, I don't know if there's any cornerbacks.
oh yeah, let me scroll to the top cuz that's always something where they every time you think, "Oh, this is where they're zeroing in on a need," right? This is where they're kind of deciding that we're going to sneak we've targeted this cornerback and we're going to go after. So it's Xavier Scott, Muhammad, let's see, anyone else? Kilgore's kind of your hybrid. Yeah, there's I don't really see
Yeah,
anybody.
out of that list, go back up. There's somebody I saw that.
Oh yeah.
Julian Neal is a guy once you get to day three is definitely a guy I think has. I mean, there's obviously flaws to his game. I think he can be a little bit handsy, but he's got coverage ability as well. So this is somewhere if you wanted to go corner, you can go Julian Neal.
Mhm.
But for me, just
Running back.
yeah, I'm gonna go Damon Claiborne.
Let's do that. Let's get
And I'm
that.
gonna call his
That's
parents because he played for the Demon Deacons. I'm gonna call his parents and ask them to put a apostrophe after the N and between the D. I'm gonna just call him Demon Claiborne, the Demon Deacon,
oh, that'd be great. All right, so this add him in. Get our running back. All right, our last pick,
tight end.
tight end. Let's go tight
Yeah,
end. Make it easy. Let's see who's still available. All right, we got A&M. We got Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Let's see. You said Delp, right? Is
yeah.
Delp the guy?
Yeah, I'd go Oscar Delpia. This is a guy that you can trust and block in. Also has some receiving ability as well, and I don't think he showed his max potential at Georgia in the way they use him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's long gone by by this point when the draft
Yeah,
rolls around. But yeah, I'd go Oscar Delp here. Also like the Texas guy Jake Indries, but there's several guys on this list that I mean, and that's one of the reasons I say I think you wait to day three to take tight end, wait to day three to take running back.
yeah. Something will draw. See, it seems like fourth round is when they have two spots there. That could be kind of the target area for both because something will shake loose where you'll have a guy that you really like. Have you watched Bentley at all? That's a guy I've heard some buzz on and people have
No,
told me to
I
kind of
keep seeing
watch
his
it.
name mentioned and all that. So you mentioned it's really piquing my interest as well because I keep seeing that name come up as well. But it's such a deep tight end class this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I think they have like a record of guys that they invited to the combine or something.
27. I think the
Yeah.
last couple of years it's been like
Yeah.
19 or 20, and this year they've got 27. And so I think you definitely come out of it with at least one tight end, like you said. Y'all were discussing you and Leo. It might not hurt you to double dip there, especially if you're going two of them on day three.
So the time honored tradition of PFF hating our picks, we
Oh
got an
yeah,
absolute D
absolutely.
minus because we're actually smarter than a bunch of computers, right? Or however
Yeah,
they
this is
stack and
usually
everything.
how my mocks look at this time of year, where they're D's and F's and everything. Because I just throw the rankings out the window. Because if you follow the draft for any period of time, they change so drastically from January to April, and so I mean, like just for the people watching or listening, Max Ian Achor is a guy that was mostly third round before the Senior Ball. Then you go watch his tape, and I'm like, man, this dude's got top 25 feet. And so then he started mostly moving up into the second round now. And then I've seen at least two, three big sites that have him like 23rd in the first round. And so you're going to see these guys moving up. I don't think Max will be there at 28. I don't think Dylan will be there at 38. Lance Zerline, he surprised me. He said he doesn't think Kieran Crawford makes it to the third, and people have him fourth and fifth on most of these sites and everything. So Oscar Delp's the guy I don't think makes it to the fourth round, but I could be wrong on that. And Damon Claiborne's a guy I haven't heard much about, but when I watched this tape, I was just blown away by the speed. I mean, I legit think this guy could be low 4.3s. I mean, it's got me counting down the days of the combine to see, hey, have my eyes gotten bad, or is this dude like legit speed demon?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to be really interesting to kind of cross check their athleticism versus what shows up on tape, because it seems like there's a wide range of kind of that bucket once you get past the first few picks. Like really, I this is why I think like either we move way up or we move back kind of situation. Is that, and I don't think moving up is going to cost as much as it usually does, because there's not the quarterbacks to drive up the value of everything. There's not a
Right,
ton of receivers. There's not a ton of high level tackles, right? That are gonna that people are gonna go up there and say, a lot of teams aren't leaning into the run first approach and targeting similar approaches that we're gonna be going with how our quarterback situation, our defense is. So I think this is like workman class, working class, like go get that great sandwich for like under $10 back in the day,
right,
kind of hard hat, get your drink and everything going on after work, and you just have a great day where you punch the card and you just add player after player after player that's going to be able to contribute in some way. Pretty much, I mean, look up and down, it's all year one. Like I think Jennings Dunker is a guy that potentially, like for me, if you were to bring him in that spot, I think there has to be a vision where you're going to at least try him at center as well. I think you can kind of, he has that intelligence and flexibility and quickness as a big dude. The only thing with him is the shorter arms. Like, and sometimes his anchor isn't great, but the flexibility, his ability to sit down in a stance, that's really interesting. I gotta watch more Crawford. I've watched of Keldrick Falk, but I haven't watched a ton of him. Damon Claiborne, I gotta watch more. I'm excited because this running back class isn't as exciting as it was last year, which was just
right.
star-studded up and down. And Delp is a guy. It's funny that you talk about him as a blocker, because I haven't watched a ton of them. I haven't gotten really really deep the way you've already gotten with a lot of these guys. But with Delp is always a guy that I never really focused on his blocking yet, because you write her out. It's kind of like profiling of like tall skinny dude that plays tight end, and then he got bigger and bigger throughout the years. And I didn't watch a ton of Georgia last year, in general. So I got to go back and kind of watch and see him as a blocker, and kind of interested to see how that works out. Because if you can get that true inline guy that can allow
Right.
you to move Schultz around and really get the most out of him and get more on the tackle, out on the edge in the run game, and just do a lot of fascinating things, it could kind of ease in, and people won't be cussing at their TV as much with and saying Kaylee this and Kaylee that. I think if they can kind of develop an identity with some kind of the personnel lining up in general. So yeah, man, I don't want to take I went way over but we got kind of deep into it. The 4 rounds, the way the draft fell made it difficult towards the end. I really appreciate you coming. I know there's a lot of great comments out there. We'll try to get into some of those next time we do a live, and I'll come back around and focus on some of these, and we'll take more of the questions and really get y'all, and make sure y'all, if y'all could come back and ask some of the similar questions, because there's great comments on there. If you guys could make sure you like, sub, and everything, and follow the channel, and if you want to become a member, we'd love to have y'all. If y'all have ideas for what we should talk about, players you want us to break down, we haven't even started. Like we did a little bit on Caleb Banks and a little bit on Monroe Freeling. We mocked the mocks. But if y'all could really come out and kind of look at that and let us know who y'all are thinking, and maybe we'll take those guys and kind of do a deeper dive on them in a video and everything. But Jason, what are you working on right now? I know you mentioned it at the beginning a little bit, but like where can people find you? Where can they read your stuff? Where Like I talked about how I've got your notifications on to read all your stuff because it's really interesting and really independent, like blinders on analysis that you don't usually get with all the groupthink you get around the draft. Kind of what have you? Where can people find you and kind of follow everything?
Right now, just during the off season, I'm not writing for Dr. Roto. Just cover the AFC South for him in season. So right now, like you said, it's just mostly independent on Twitter at Jason Braddock. Looking at the NFL draft, getting a little bit more into NFL free agency. Daniel Jeremiah's got a conference call tomorrow at noon Central Time, so I'll probably jump on that and see his thoughts. He's always got pretty detailed, great thoughts on that. And see, I'm not really looking to ask any questions, all that, but I'll probably tweet out a little thread of anything intriguing he says on some of the different prospects. I know he's probably gotten a little bit deeper into it, much deeper than I have at this point. And so just like to pick his brain and see where his head's at on some of the prospects I haven't heard about or haven't watched yet. And so it kind of lets me put an earmark down on guys I need to go look at and everything. And then with free agency just a couple weeks away, extremely intrigued to see what happens there for the Texans and how that sets up the draft. Because then I think we got an even better picture with where the Texans may be, what they might be prioritizing in the draft.
Absolutely, yeah, man. We really appreciate everyone. We've had quite a few people. We over, I haven't looked at the numbers yet because I've been too busy kind of going deep in this draft with Jason. But we really appreciate everyone that's watched tonight and really enjoy. We'll have Leo will be back next week off the injured list and we can't wait to talk to y'all again. And we really appreciate Jason coming through. So I appreciate everybody, and if you guys hit us up, we'd love to talk with y'all about Texans and everything. This is 713 Football with Jason Braddock, and we'll catch y'all later.